you. I will call this work session meeting of the San Marcos City Council to order. Today is Tuesday, February 17th. The time is 3 p.m. Ms. Trevino, would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Rodriguez.
Here.
Mr. Purcell.
Here.
Ms. Garza. Mayor Houston.
Here.
Mr. Scott.
Here.
Mr. Mendoza.
Here.
Mr. Gonzalez. We have a quorum present.
All right, we will start with our citizen comment time period. The council hears citizen comments at regular meetings, workshops, and work sessions. There is a process to speak, to register to speak. If you are online, when it's almost your turn, there's going to be a pop-up question that appears on your screen. You must be able to respond to that. You must respond to that in order to be able to speak and turn on your video when it's your turn. Speakers may speak once during citizen comment time period, may not yield time to others. If you speak now about a public hearing topic on the 6 o'clock agenda, I ask that you not repeat exactly the same comments again during the public hearing on that topic. When it's your turn to speak, state your name for the record. You will have 3 minutes. You will see on the screen that the timer will display green. When you have 20 seconds left, the timer shows only the yellow, and there's a little ping sound. When your time to speak is up, the timer's red and the bell will ring. If you hear a popping sound, step back a little bit from the microphone. The mayor and council will endeavor to ensure that meetings are conducted in a courteous manner and in an atmosphere free of defamation, intimidation, personal insults, profanity, or threats of violence. This is your warning. So if you do any of those, it's not, don't do it again. This is your warning. You'll hear the gavel, and I will ask you to leave the council chambers. I will call 5 names at a time. So if I have called your name, please be nearby and ready to speak. Kylie Reed, Lou Bexfield, Selena Garza, Davis Jones, looks like you'll be first, and Catherine Rogers. It's your turn to go to the podium. After that, since it looks like he may be the only one of the first 5, Hyatt Curranful, Bethany Gay, Athens Taylor, Sarah Carl, and Carmen Rumbot. State your name. 3 minutes will begin.
All right, I am Davis Jones. I'm Mayor Houston and members of the council. I appreciate your time and energy that you all put into this community. I know you are under intense pressure as you evaluate this data center vote, and I appreciate that it is not easy. As a community, we need to realize that we are in a new chapter in the story of San Marcos. The I-35 Innovation Corridor is booming, and our community has grown. And there are powerful financial and political interests from Dallas, the nation, and maybe even the world who look at Central Texas and see one of the most important regions in the economic future of the United States of America. Understandably, these people have a fiduciary duty to their backers to achieve maximum returns on their investment. They maximize those investments by finding relatively low-cost land to make the most money possible. I understand that we live in a capitalistic society, and I am in the private sector too. I like America. I like capitalism. However, there is always a battle between political power and financial power. The role of political power is to represent the interests of the voters. We live in a representative democracy, and you are our representatives. Clearly, this community does not want these data centers. I think we can all agree that that is the overwhelming sentiment. Now, I understand that your job is not merely to please the crowd. It is to be a steward of the community more broadly. Of course, the developers have tried to plead that case to you, promising tax revenues and concessions. In this new chapter, situations like this are going to be increasingly common. Given the legal framework of the state of Texas and our status as a home rule city, it is important that we anticipate this new chapter by being proactive about what reflects the soul of San Marcos, and that is water. We are the mermaid capital of Texas. We are stewards of a sacred site. The headwaters has arguably been the longest continuously inhabited place in North America. Our soul as a community should be reflected in this new chapter through the tools that we have as a city government. our zoning standards, our vision plan, and our building tools, our building codes. We have to stop relying on asking developers to do the right thing. We need to shift our strategy from rebate to mandate. We shouldn't just hope for water neutrality, we must codify it. If you want to build in the water capital of Texas, you must meet our standard. That means moving towards net zero water use as a city, not through incentives, but through requirements. This vision should be realized in partnership with capital. If these people want to bring things to San Marcos, they need to be our partners in our future. An equal partnership between capital and politics is one where both benefit. And this data
And
center does not match this criteria.
Your time for this time period is up.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to call these again. Kylie Reed, Lou Bexfield, Catherine Rogers, Hyatt Carnful, Bethany Gay, Athens Taylor, Sarah Carl, Carmen Rumbault, Rocco Moses, Maxfield Baker. Is he online? Oh, I'm sorry, Rocco Moses might be online too. Here? Is that you? Oh, come on up. Yeah.
Hello, how y'all doing? Rocco Moses here in San Marcos. I'm really coming to, I've got two different parts in the 3 minutes. These data centers from a micro standpoint, there's huge detriment. The water, we can't sustain the water tables. That's, you know, whether these facilities are gonna move towards net zero as far as water, they're not. Because these are parasitic entities. These facilities extract energy from the places where they go. That's why they put them in water tables. That's why they put them in such proximity to residential areas. This is happening across the country. There is huge amounts of data pools, people getting sick, environmental contaminations, and all of those things are terrible. But what these data centers represent is a control mechanism that has been being installed for the better part of a decade. This has been talked about since the 90s. These data centers represent a control mechanism, a data control mechanism, and that is what I'm praying that council members are able to see through the process of what capitalism does. Is it wears people down. Y'all have been approached by these organizations, by Mayberry. I know that all of you have been approached by these businesses. It's a playbook that they run to wear councils down, to change zonings, to then, you know, insert their way into community areas. So this is a paramount process from the standpoint of they're not here yet. You are the last line that we have because the state's not going to come help us because they're complicit in all of this. The state has no regard for local sanctity and sovereignty because they allow these facilities to come in. And I'm against heavy industrial as well, but that's neither here nor there because you can rationalize that in the systems that we have, but these data centers are something different. These data centers are like, allowing these data centers to come into our presence is like prisoners building the prison door that's finally going to lock them in. And so it's being able to understand a statement like that because the quantity of resources that these facilities need to accomplish a task that, and again, I don't know how versed you are in the understanding of a 2 megawatt facility, the data processing that they're proposing, you can't really even process it when you really talk to these people about what these facilities are going to accomplish. It is an incredibly important process that we as an area and as citizens do everything that we can to fight these processes and these facilities and these people. So I'm praying that that carries. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Maxfield Baker, who joins us online.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you and see you.
Hooray. Yes, my name is Maxfield Baker. I am here to reiterate the comments I made last time this was agendized regarding the police staffing study. I attended the consultants meetings. The public input was a pretty skewed population. A lot of them, again, being from Kissing Tree, admittedly. A lot of folks there saying that these police officers are doing a good job, but none of them have ever actually called the police officers or had to rely on police officers, let alone been on the receiving end of bad police officers. I think that, you all are doing a good job already seeking some more regional partnerships to address some of the staffing problems. We need to recognize that not increasing the police budget is not the equivalent of defunding the police. We need to think smarter with our budget, and that de facto means that we cannot continue to add civil service staff members to fill roles that could be done by non-civil service employees. Our police chief has championed some of that to his credit. We need to see more of that. The main thing that I wanted to talk about, though, is the key takeaway I saw, and something that I and Councilmember Garza had been asking for a long time when I was chair of the Criminal Justice Reform Committee, is more qualitative feedback from this community outreach that our police officers like to pat themselves on the back and say they're doing a good job of. They had lots of events, but they have no meaningful data to say how that's had an impact on crime or, community relations, with myself positing the idea that community relations have not been increased. We still, according to our own community surveys, have had a comparable track record of trust in our local government and our police officers to do the right thing. As I have been asking for, we need to have a actual maybe town hall as it relates to criminal justice reform, in particular, in light that you all will be discussing the civil service contract. The negotiations of meeting in good faith as promised by city staff and the police union since the last time the civil service contract was negotiated have not happened. And so why would our community trust that this department and this union and our city staff are actually working to address these issues? So host a town hall. I will say I've had a conversation with Officer Eric Charleswells as it relates to some community outreach and suggesting these things. Also, the Citizens Police Academy has a lot of dog whistles built into it and needs to be addressed in order for us as, activists for criminal justice reform to feel like we actually are being listened to and heard. So take advantage of those resources in the community. Don't push us out just because we're trying to hold you accountable, because that's what's happened every single time. Thank you, and we're here for conversation if you have.
Our next speakers in this order are John Mayberry, Katie Nichols, Chad Bartling, Benjamin Aguayo, and Cap Morris, in that order.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. John Mayberry, I'm the applicant for the data center at 904 Francis Harris. I don't have any real talking points. I just wanted you all to see that we've got a packet that includes the FAQ that's also in the packet that you've already seen, but there were a lot of questions that were kind of coming in over the weekend from the community, and so we did a supplement and answered a few more of those questions, and then we did a couple of maps, and I just wanted y'all to have it for at least a couple of hours before to look at it. I know you got other stuff going on, but that's what that is. Thank you.
Okay, Katie Nichols. Is Katie Nichols here? Chad, oh, wait a minute. Katie was going to be online. Is she there, Mr. Trevino? Okay. I'll check again in a couple of minutes. Chad Bartling, you're next.
Mayor Houston, ladies and gentlemen of the council, fellow citizens of San Marcos, good afternoon. I'm going to repeat some of the things I mentioned at P&Z several weeks ago.
Your name?
Oh, yes, ma'am. My name is Chad Bartling.
Thank you.
I am a son of our great city. I have lived and worked in this community for 46 years. I'm a San Marcos Rattler, class of '98. For the bulk of their careers, my mom and dad both worked for Century Telephone and San Marcos Telephone. My in-laws owned and operated a restaurant in this community for 20 years before closing in 2010. The city and this community has been a blessing and a joy to me for all of these years, and that is why I chose to base my electrical contracting company here when I opened in 2013. So to speak, my boots have been in this dirt for most of my life. I would like to speak to you this afternoon regarding the data center, the proposed data center, from a tradesman's perspective. While it is true today that I own and operate a company with 80-plus employees, I started out in the field putting on my work boots every day, putting on a tool belt, and fabricating. I'm proud to be able to drive around our city and see many of the buildings and businesses that I helped construct. Projects of this size, type, and scope, so as this one, cannot be understated in their value to the tradesmen and women of our city and county. Projects like this data center, with its size and expected duration and phasing, will provide not only a long runway of job opportunity for those already in the trades, but also open the door for a solid growth opportunity for young men and women who are exploring new opportunities in the trades for the first time. The truth is this project will likely be built. Now, depending on the outcome of tonight's council vote, it may or may not be built here, but rest assured it will be constructed somewhere. And when it does, it will require a massive amount of labor resources to execute. What an opportunity we have as a city to support our tradesmen and women with well-paying, dependable, safe, and most importantly, local work opportunities. In addition, what an opportunity we have to support our other local small businesses as they support this labor force with ancillary services and goods during the construction of the project. One other item to note, during the P&Z several weeks ago, many statements were made about water usage. I'm going to summarize what I had already written in a more condensed version, but I just would encourage the council tonight to just review the numbers of the deed restrictions and the covenants of the property, focus on what is written and binding, and not get caught up in the emotion, and then hold the developer to that standard. I implore the city and the ladies and gentlemen of the council to consider joining me in support of this initiative and approve this project to happen in San Marcos. Thank you all. Good afternoon.
Benjamin Aguayo, Cap Morris, Megan Lavender. Is there anyone here who signed up to speak who has not spoken? Okay, we will end our citizen comment time period. And Ms. Trevino, would you read item 1?
Receive a report on the San Marcos Police Department workload and staffing analysis and provide direction to the city manager.
Ms. Reyes.
Mr. Alonzo Anderson will give you introductory remarks. Thank you, Mayor.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Alonzo Anderson, Assistant City Manager. In 2025, City Council directed the City Manager's Office to commission a staffing study before authorizing any additional public safety positions. Following City Council approval of a proposal on May the 20th, 2025, the San Marcos PD engaged Matrix Consulting Group to conduct a comprehensive assessment of police services and staffing. The study was designed to evaluate the department's ability to meet current service demands, review staffing levels and deployment practice, assess operational administrative support functions, and establish data-driven framework to guide future resource and staffing decisions. The assessment focused on the delivery of the city's emergency service system, and the analysis considered how service demands, workloads, and organizational complexity has evolved. Matrix Consulting Group employed a multi-method approach that included interviews with city leadership, police command staff, sworn personnel, civilian personnel, and community stakeholders. Community input was gathered through 3 in-person meetings and 2 virtual sessions. The report summarized within the presentation. You will receive their findings. Thank you for your time today, Council. I will now turn it over to Matrix Consulting Group Senior Manager John Scruggs for the presentation.
Welcome back.
Thank you. Good to be here and think of this on. Again, I'm John Scruggs with Matrix Consulting Group, here to present our findings of our study and overview, and then open up for questions. Mayor, members of the council, thank you for having us here. Next slide, please. So a little bit backstory on Matrix. We've been around for 23 years. We've worked in 45 states. We've done over 400 police-related studies, and we have about an 85% implementation rate. We base that on the fact that we take a lot of stakeholder input. It's fact-based. We take our time with our analysis, and we detail in an implementation plan or strategies to accomplish what we recommend. We have extensive experience working in Texas. We've worked with many agencies in and around here over the last 10 years and beyond that. Next slide. So the scope of the work was extensive input at the beginning, collection of a bunch of data, including computer-aided dispatch records, caseload information, different types of workloads within the agency. And then we did stakeholder input, which was resulted in 5 community meetings, 3 in person, 2 virtual, and interview with city stakeholders throughout the city. And also, as previously stated, with command staff, even down to the working line officers in some places, did some ride-alongs as well. We did a detailed analysis for a staffing report, put that together, and then we worked with your city planning to develop a 10-year projection. So what your population will be in the next 10 years. And we use that current staffing and projections to come up with projected staffing needs over the next 10 years. Next slide. So overall, high-level conclusions is the police department provides an exceptional level of service to the community. The patrol is staffed and deployed to deliver highly proactive, engaged service. And there are, though that is true, there are some additional staffing needed in specialty units such as the mental health unit and traffic unit, and then some other units within the police department. Next slide. The major issue, and those one of the other units we're talking about, is dispatch. There is a need to add significant new staff to meet industry best standards. We use industry standards to evaluate staffing in dispatch, and as we'll go through a little bit further, I'll show you some of the deficiencies there. Investigations is slightly understaffed in some investigative areas, and overall there's a need for additional staff in administrative and support positions. There right now, currently, the way it is operating, there are some administrative functions that are being done by sworn personnel, and that's just because it has to get done. But at an overall level, like I said, the patrol staffing is pretty decent. Next slide. So one of the things we did was we looked at the computer-aided dispatch records. We went through all the calls for service that were community generated, where the community called for service. That ended up being about 26,000 calls for service. Top 10 calls for service are listed there, but alarm for business, noise complaint, criminal trespass, disturbance, and suspicious circumstances. The first one is pretty common to be number 1. I will say that they had a little higher level of criminal trespass and disturbance. We don't always see that in the top 10, so that stood out to us in our initial analysis. One of the things that we also looked at is call handling time. So time officers on scene or backups on scene, how long does it take to take that call for service? That was around 31 minutes. That's in line with many other agencies of similar size. Next slide. We were asked to look at calls that may be in and around Texas State University. And so what we did was we drew a boundary around the university at 100 yards. We use that as a performance metrics for other things as well, because an incident that may be related to a business or a location may be out front of it or down the block, but it actually started that location. So we used a 100-yard buffer. And as we look back at 2023 and 2024, they averaged about 2,300 calls for service per year. So if you think back to the 26,000 calls for service annually, you're right around 8 or 9% there. And that shows up here. We also showed, we looked at the number 1 calls for service. Accidents were number 1, which was almost 1 a day. I will put a caveat there is that we don't look at what the people involved in the call are. So an accident that occurs on the campus could be people that aren't even related to the university. So just want to put that little asterisk there that though it isn't around the university, we're not saying it's definitively all those calls for service are actually university related. Next slide. So Patrol response times is one thing we look at. So the golden response time for a well-performing, exceptional agency is 6 to 8 minutes for what we call a priority one call. That's someone needing assistance right now. They're being assaulted, someone's breaking into a house. You guys were at 8.3 minutes, so you're right, really close to that really good performance record. And I would say that through our analysis, I would say the majority of those, you were under 8 minutes. It's just there are some that are a little longer than that. The other metric we look at is overall time waiting for service from the police department. And so if you look at the really low priority calls, which is only 2% of them, they average like 41-minute response time. But overall, you're most likely to get a response from the police, no matter whether it's an emergency or non-emergency, within 22 minutes, which is actually really good. Most agencies are higher, more up to 30 minutes or beyond, so doing very well there. Next. So proactive time is another thing we look at, which is the amount of time officers are actually on the job doing their work and not on a call. And the reason it's important, and we calculate it, is that if you have an officer who's going call to call to call, they don't have time or segments of time to actually address community issues. So if they know there's issues going on at a certain location, if they were going call to call to call and they have no proactive time available, they'll never get to address that issue. So we looked at that, and we set a benchmark nationally working with our agencies around 45%. And the reason we settle on that 45%, that gives you longer, like 15 or more minutes of segmented time to actually address an issue. So if an officer only has like 5 minutes to go deal with something, they might have to drive there, and by the time they get there, they're on their next call. So that's why it's important. So SMPD had an overall proactive time at 59%. And I will just throw out that some of that is skewed, some of that occurs from 2 a.m. to 6 a.m., which there's just not a lot of activity. There's not a lot of people walking, not a lot of people driving, so there's a little limited proactivity there, or opportunities for proactivity there. Next slide, please. So this is a chart that breaks it down by 4-hour increments. So green is good, and lighter green is less good. So that's usually where you're under the 45%. So you have an anomaly on Saturday mornings from 10 to 2. It was no specific types of calls, no repeated calls. It was just an anomaly that falls a little bit lower. But at an overall rate, you were pretty good throughout the week there. We did note that on Friday and Saturday, starting at 6 to 10, you're down in the 30s. And I think that has to do with some of the activity around some of the city core bars, those kind of things that happen. And that's why that would be lower there. However, at an overall rate, your current staffing for patrol is generally able to handle that, though we do have a recommendation for a more concentrated patrol in the central city area. Next slide, please. So what are your officers doing with their time? So that's another thing we look at. So just because you have free time, what are you doing with it? Because you don't want them not doing something. And so we went through and looked at all the proactive calls for service that they created themselves. That's traffic stops, pedestrian stops, going out on foot, community contacts, those kind of things. You have 10,000 of those annually during the year we looked at, which is a pretty good number. That means the officers are actually out doing stuff when they do have the time and available to do it. And as you can see from this chart, traffic stop was number 1. Closed patrol was number 2. Next slide, please. So we put those two things together, and this is what we look at as far as overall utility, like how, what are they doing with their time? How busy are they? And as you can see on this chart, the dark purple means they're very, very busy, and then down to the gray where they're not. As I alluded to earlier, between 2 and 6 a.m., you have to staff because you may get priority calls. In fact, a lot of priority calls come in overnight, so you're staffed for that, but they're not super busy those times, but that's because there's limited opportunities to be proactive and limited calls for service coming in, but you have to be staffed to handle those. And then as you look at Friday and Saturday night, they tend to be busier. That has to do with, a lot more calls for service generally. So we made some recommendations on that based on some of the calls, and as we looked at call disbursement, we were recommending creating a two-person team along with a sergeant to do an enhanced downtown patrol, covering those peak times for service hours, so that you actually had a presence down here a lot. That also correlates to one of the community meetings we had where folks felt like there wasn't always a presence of police, and they wanted to see some more police. And so those kind of go hand in hand, that recommendation, and then looking at the calls for service. Next slide. So dispatch, as I alluded to earlier, is where you have the majority of issues in our perspective, which is they're handling all the calls for service, police, fire, emergency, obviously, and they are understaffed to handle a call volume, and we're recommending 11 additional dispatchers. Historically, throughout the country, we have about a 20 to 25% turnover rate annually for dispatchers. It's a high burnout rate job. And one of the things that we noticed in looking at the CAD data for dispatch here is they're keyboarding a lot and they're on the air a lot. And so there are industry standards where you want to have about 50% of your time you're not doing either one, that you're listening. And as you can, if you can remember back to the slide where I said there was like 350 accidents in one year. So one accident may generate 4 or 5 calls for service. So you get all those calls going in, and if you have dispatchers that are overworked, sometimes things can happen where you're not getting the response you needed. So that's what we were looking at, is like, this is a very high level of work that those folks are performing, and that's why we're recommending additional staff there. Next slide. In administration, we're recommending additional record staff and then additional training staff. So some of these things are being done now, and for example, in training, it's being done, but sometimes we're pulling people from different parts of the organization to get that training conducted. That won't necessarily change totally, because you have subject matter experts who may be in patrol or maybe in investigations being pulled back to help with training. But to give the amount of training that you want your officers to have, you're going to need additional staff to accomplish that. Next slide. So in investigation, we found investigations, property crimes should be increased slightly. Staffing and special investigations should be increased by 2 investigators as well. Digital forensics, you hear about it all the time in the news, but really any investigation now, it's especially a serious person crime, it all goes back down to digital forensics. And just to download one cell phone that you've written a warrant for, just to put it on a computer and get it downloaded, is 4 to 6 hours. And phones are getting more complicated and they're holding more data. So sometimes that could be up to 20 hours. And if it's password protected, that could be even longer, that it's sitting there. And then just to have someone to analyze it. So you hear about it all the time, but it really is a key to a lot of investigation now. And we find that the folks here are kind of backlogged on stuff that they could do more digital forensics than they are currently doing, and they just don't have the capacity to do it. And then we recommended to analysts. One thing the SMPD is doing very well here is they're using analysts in a kind of a hybrid fashion. They're using them to help and assist with investigations, and this is a really good thing. It's a movement we're seeing around the country, but some of the things that investigators are doing, you could have an analyst do faster and more efficiently. Looking up records, finding associations, those kind of things where the investigator can focus on doing the interrogations or the interviews, writing reports, doing surveillance, those kind of things, while in the background you can have highly trained analysts who are finding connections between your suspects and the victims or other things. So we're recommending additional 2 folks there. And there is currently a backlog in some analysis work for the crime analysis folks. Next slide. So projections, over the next 10 years, population expected to increase just over 50%, which is pretty incredible. You guys live here, but it was another 50% just 10 years ago come to here, and then it's 50% going forward. And then the service demand is also going to increase as well. Next slide. I think there's a typo in this one I just saw. But yeah, projected service needs are going to expect to increase a similar amount. So obviously, as the population increases, so does the calls for service, so do the investigations. And so we based our projected staffing analysis off this anticipated growth in population over the next 10 years. Next slide. So, and this is where we find tooth comb when we go through the data. It's like, what is the projected, development going to be? So we're looking at residential, commercial, and industrial, because they all have different calls for service needs. So the least likely is industrial, next residential, and then commercial has the highest call volume. And so as we looked at the city and how it's developing, we put, here's how the call load is currently, here's where the projected increase. So though the expected increase is 50%, staffing, we're recommending increasing by about 45%. So not keeping up with the population. I think it's important here to mention, though, over the last 10 years, your population increased by 50%, and your police staffing only increased, I think, is around 13%. So in the last 10 years, the staffing, though it did increase, it didn't increase as much as the population. So over the next decade, we're recommending 74.5 sworn positions and 39 professional staff to keep the service levels the way they are going in 10 years into the future. And next slide. So this just this chart just breaks out the staffing basically by unit organizational level. So Office of the Chief, we are not recommending any increase over the next 10 years. And I think that it's important to realize that in some of those administrative positions, we actually take some of the workload off of one of the folks in the chief's office and put it on that, and that's the getting the certification, Texas Chiefs Police certification, so that our policies are updated and meet best practices and current standards. And operations is where, in patrol is where you see the largest increase, and then followed by investigations, and then administrative staff. So 74 positions over the next 10 years. Next slide. And this breaks it down for the professional staff. Again, most of those positions are going to be in investigations or administration. So it ends up being a net of 39 positions we'd be recommending over the next 10 years for professional staff. Next slide. And so, questions?
I have one.
Yes.
Is the additional 74.5 and 39 not from this point forward, but from what we need, which means some of those we needed years ago?
Yes. So
Okay, that's to catch up.
yes. Yeah.
Okay. Other questions, observations? Thank you. This was very detailed, especially when you get into the full document. This is the presentation, and there's even more numbers, lots of numbers. Ms. Rodriguez?
And maybe this was in the actual report, I just missed it, but how many dispatchers do we currently have?
It is in the actual report, and I don't remember off the top of my head. I could look it up, though.
Okay. Because I know we've had a conversation about this before as a city. I can't remember under what circumstances.
Yeah, but while y'all are thinking on that, let me ask.
The chief probably knows that answer.
Okay, and then my next question is how many at any given time? I know this is 24/7, we need a lot of people, but how many more stations would we need? And Chief can.
State standards, police chief. I believe our current numbers, inclusive of supervisors, are 30.
How many?
30 currently. Excuse me, 30. And what was the second question, Mayor?
How many stations do we have?
We currently staff 4 stations. So there's one for police dispatch, 1 fire dispatch, 2 call take. So to John's point earlier, as soon as you receive the 3rd call, you're already outstaffed.
Okay, but what I was looking for is how many more people at any given time, shift-wise, is the increase going to be?
We currently are working to staff an additional dispatch console
Okay,
during peak hours.
okay,
And here's why we're doing this. Your primary radio channel for police needs to be for primary critical radio traffic.
okay.
Your secondary channel needs to be for all wants and warrants. It's all the background information that doesn't need to be on the primary.
Okay,
Well, historically, we've only had one channel. So right now, we are testing, beta testing, a certain amount of hours where we stand up a second console. Ideally, that needs to be a permanent feature moving forward, because the reality is this city is growing, as does the call volume. We have a total of, Chief Clint, 13 consoles? We have 13 consoles. We're at most hitting 5 consoles. So we have considerable growth, to John's point earlier.
but we have the space for the
We have the
the
space.
additional that we need. We have space.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good to know. Okay. Ms. Rodriguez, did you have anything else? I kind of jumped in there, sorry.
No, you're okay. So the section at the beginning of this report, related to community input, was that the sole section? Because I went to each of the, I think there was 3 in person. I know there was 3 or 1 on Zoom. Mr. Anderson, was it 3 or 2? The button takes a little bit.
There were a total of 5 community sessions.
Okay.
3 of those were in person and 2 were virtual.
Thank you. And I'm not going to say that this is explicitly a reduction, but the gentleman who attended those, I guess from y'all's team, was there anything else that he had to, more so for that first meeting, that encompassed a larger population of opinions that were presented in that one? Or was this the only one that?
The section of the front part is the only one that encompasses the outcome of those community meetings. In more of a listening session, and then so one of the things we do at those community meetings, if we hear something that comes up, we'll further do analysis on it. Like one of the things that, like we were talking about extra patrol in the downtown corridor, that related from a comment at the community meeting that someone brought up. But I would say that like a formal analysis of the community input, we don't do that for the ones that we do in person. If we do a survey, we do a way that it's actually verified and accurate, and that we're getting the correct information, and versus just an opinion at a community meeting. But it's stuff that we take into consideration.
So quantitative versus qualitative.
Exactly.
And yeah, the town halls were more qualitative. I get that completely. It's just so much of this requires, given fiscal constraints, requires some sort of approval from the community, right? And the reason I brought it up is because, yes, some of the things that are reflected in the report as far as community input was concerned were things that were mentioned. But in that first meeting specifically, and the reason I bring that up is because to convince people to go to that first meeting was difficult. There was a lot of, just from my colleagues who weren't able to attend, there was a lot of concern whether or not the opinions that they provided were actually going to be taken seriously, especially if they were different than what we typically hear as it relates to policing. So I feel like it's incumbent on me to sort of bring that to the public's attention, and that was concerns around distrust, concerns around the lack of reimagining when it comes to how we spend our money and on what to accomplish crime prevention, right? And so I know y'all hear this from me constantly, but just as a matter of bringing that to people's attention, that did take up a considerable amount of time during that first community meeting. So I just thought it was important to mention that. I understand it's not necessarily going to be reflected in here, given the qualitative versus quantitative aspects, but yeah. But thank you.
I have a question. If we could go back to patrol proactivity, it's the one with a lot of green blocks. And what I'm trying to figure out is what's up with Saturday, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m.?
So
That one.
Yeah, we dug in that a little bit. We didn't find any certain calls or anything like that made it different. It just the gross data came out that way. It
I mean,
just
it's
anomaly.
markedly different.
Yep.
So-
It caught our attention as well. So once that happened, our analysts looked at it a little closer, like, what is causing that? And there really wasn't like, because sometimes you will have like, it's a shift change or other things that might happen. There's nothing like that we found
I was
that
just-
correlated.
Curious. Okay.
Yeah.
Anybody over here, questions, thoughts? Mr. Basile? That means that it was a good report,
All right.
covered the waterfront.
Well, thank you.
All right, thank you. And thanks to everyone who assisted in providing the data. And there's Ms. Garza. I looked for your hand earlier. Now would be a good time.
Right, no, I just wanted to chime in. I am going to be really honest and say that I have some questions, like follow-up questions. I have been like knee-deep in the data center rabbit hole, and so I am not prepared to concisely articulate them, but I'll be sending them out via email, and it's mostly just like trying to understand like where we go from here, and just some like yeah, some more questions about like the implications of some of the findings, but I'm not prepared to share right now.
Okay. Ms. Reyes, Mr. Anderson, where do we go from here?
Well, what we would normally be doing is asking council for direction during your budget policy about what you want to see in regard to staffing and that sort of things. And so the direction that you provided at the last budget policy, we prior had that public safety staffing plan where we were adding an officer and then 3 firefighters every year. And so that was something that we were doing. And then y'all said, hey, wait until you do a staffing study to make sure that we actually know what the needs are, that they're updated and everything like that. So we would be prepared at the budget policy to kind of ask mayor and council what your direction is based on the findings of the staffing survey so that we know what you want to build in the upcoming budget. So that's kind of the next step, if you will. And so there will be opportunities for that discussion during budget policy.
Okay, and we'll be talking police and fire.
Correct.
Okay.
Well, fire, we don't have the staffing study yet, and so that will be starting, but it'll be in regard to EMS. We have the EMS study completed, we have marshal study completed, we have police, so now fire remains to be completed.
Well, we'll be talking about fire at budget review, even if we don't have a study ready yet.
Correct, correct.
Okay, Ms. Rodriguez?
All
Oh,
staffing.
just a follow-up question on that for, I guess, general procedure question. So I understand, accommodating our thoughts and decisions, including this, but are we also going to factor in, given budget constraints, the actual feasibility of some of these things?
Yes.
Separately, independently of this?
We'll have to, because obviously we can't write checks that we can't cash. And so even if it's like endeavor to language or look to see where there are opportunities for certain things, that may be what it is. And then we'll have to look at, based on everything that we're doing right now to contain costs, and try to see then what our budget capacity is based on available revenues and that sort of thing.
Okay, and will we also have an idea separate from the departments, the respective departments, on additional staff throughout the rest of the city in critical areas as well?
We will, so we are putting together kind of some information to let y'all know those unmet needs from past years. So that'll be part of your discussion as well. When it comes to actually funding positions, we like to do that more in having discussion with y'all once we get the certified tax rolls. And that is at the end of July, so then that would mean your August workshops. So that'll be more concrete information regarding what the revenues are looking like and what the available capacity is. But if there is an appetite for mayor and council to look at some of those staffing needs, then we would just need to have some general direction so that we know whether to go and pursue that or not. And that would be for all staffing, not just police.
Mayor, if I could add one thing to
bet.
everything that Ms. Reyes just said. We also have to be mindful of grant opportunities. And so specifically, I've told the city manager's office this, that there is a grant opportunity that we'll explore come April.
Okay.
This is specifically the Motor Vehicle Crime Prevention Authority. And it would allow us, it would have to come to this body twice, would allow us to come with budgeted positions through a grant. And so I just want to, I agree with your priorities. It has to be in alignment with our fiscal capability as a city, but we also need to be mindful of grants.
Thank you.
Question.
Yes, ma'am.
What office is that grant coming out of?
Texas Department of Insurance.
Okay.
It's through the
And-
state of Texas.
And what is the grant proposing? As far as how much, is there a certain percentages covering that we have to match? Is that over a course of, set of time?
Yes,
Will we
ma'am.
have to take it over eventually? What does it look like?
That's a great question. So the funding can be in perpetuity, but you have to apply each year. So as an example, we're already on our third year. The funding that we received in our first year was sustained the second, and we'll apply for, again, sustaining it for the third year. So it can be in perpetuity as long as we continue to ask for that amount. It is an 80% where they pay 80, we pay 20% match, but the match can be in kind, meaning if there are things that we can provide, like the training and such, then that could offset our 20% expense. And so we could add staff for negligible impact to the general fund. Also, lastly, sorry. We would want to be mindful, this is not just for sworn, but it's for professional staff. John did a really good job of giving us credit for civilianizing as many positions as possible, and he gave kudos to the analysis unit, appropriately so. We would also want to pursue an additional analyst through that grant, if ultimately council agrees to do any of this.
Okay, I guess as that moves forward, given how a lot of those grant programs we've talked about at length often require different things in terms of federal immigration enforcement, I'd like to see whatever agreements that we would have to fill out, agree to. I understand that happens earlier now rather than after you apply, and so I'd be interested in making sure that we take a look at that as well.
Yes, ma'am.
And in any of those grants, we would get y'all's approval, obviously, to make sure that y'all are in line with where we're going with those. And so that may be some unique opportunities that the chief's talking about where it's not taking on the full freight of that cost and we can get some assistance. And so we would just need council direction to know that y'all are interested in looking at those opportunities and we can bring that all back to you at a later time. So we'll be having more discussion about that as we evaluate things.
And that's why I didn't want to blindside you all. If we came back sooner than the budget discussions with this proposed grant, and you were like, well, why didn't this get discussed during the staffing discussion? I just wanted to be fully transparent.
Well, we'll have the budget policy at the end of February, so it'll be at the end of this month, and so it's doubtful we'll bring it back before then. But good point, and it is something that we will be mindful of before even we get to the August conversations. So as long as we know that council's generally accepting of what the study has called for, then we can go from there in terms of looking for opportunities and then bringing those back to mayor and council for consideration.
So is that what you're looking for us to say is, yep, this is good, and let's figure out how we can get there?
Yes, but, we're not asking for you to tell us that today. We can
Okay.
do that even more during the budget policy. We wanted to know if you had general questions. If you're not in agreement with this, then obviously we would want to know that now, if there's anything we need to go back with. But as far as direction for where we go from here, y'all can give us that at a later time, so you have some time to kind of
Okay.
sit with this a little bit.
I'm still trying to figure out this Saturday 10 to 2 thing.
I would hypothesize that Saturday follows Friday night. And so because of that, your shifts that are going to be working Friday nights are also going to be working on Saturdays and day shifts and evening shifts. So a lot of that report writing is going to be catch up on a Saturday
Okay.
from a Friday. My patrol supervisors are giving me a head nod, yes. Saturday could be a whole lot of catch up.
Well, Sunday's 38%, and that's low for some of the others, so, okay, I'll buy that.
All right.
Anything else?
So more to follow. We'll bring that back during the budget policy and then subsequent months too, Mayor. So,
Yes.
thank you.
All right, thank y'all. Thanks again to everyone who provided the information that was needed to put the the study together, and thank you. Okay. It looks like we are on to question and answer with press and public. Am I right about that, Mr. Trevino? We don't have any executive session? And we do have a few people who are signed up. So I will check and see if they're here with us in person or online. Athens Taylor indicated online. I'm looking. I do not see them. Is Sarah Carl? Carmen Rumbot? Maxfield Baker? Mr. Baker, if you are there, yes, now would be a good time.
Yes, so I'm curious if council would be willing to entertain my recommendation to host a town hall related to criminal justice reform issues, particularly the point made in this presentation, which didn't seem to be asked by anybody, about needing more qualitative data. You know, for instance, this consulting firm, when they did their community outreach, and almost all community outreach that I've attended, very rarely asks for the demographics of the feedback that is being received, whether that is a business owner or a community member or a resident in a specific neighborhood, all those kind of data points. I think a town hall on this would do really well. Is that a priority that staff and council could identify right now to get things moving, particularly as it relates to the negotiation of the civil service contract this year and the promises made to meet in good faith? Can staff address any of those concerns and questions that aren't just coming again from me, but from many members of our community?
I'm still writing stuff down. Ms. Reyes.
So we are not planning to have a town hall specific to the needs of what has come from the study. However, council has directed to do a town hall as it comes to budget priorities. And so that will be something that will be coming up is in relation to budget priorities. And so this could be something that is in relation to that. As far as meet and confer negotiations, we're still a ways from those. And so those will be open to the public. And so I'm not necessarily prepared to answer whether there will be town halls planned for that. We'll want to work with mayor and council regarding that in the future. But in regard to this, it will be more for the budget, and any concerns that you have, we would be able to provide those to the mayor and council through those town hall meetings regarding the budget process.
Okey-doke.
And I would
My
only add
question-
that we, as a part of our strategic plan, will roll into different neighborhoods each of the next 12 months. Our first one is actually tomorrow night for Dunbar Heritage, and that will kick off at 7 p.m. So hopefully you all receive that.
And would you-
So as it relates, I'm a Dunbar resident and I barely received that the other day. So the rollout of this kind of, again, are you going to ask for demographic information there? And the question was to council whether you would be willing to direct staff to host a town hall as it relates to better community outreach. Are any of you all willing to ask or direct staff to do that?
And I think that answer was provided, but what is this event that you're talking about?
We are working through the neighborhood commission,
Okay,
and so we have assembled a meeting for Dunbar Heritage tomorrow at 7 p.m. Chief Collette, pull up the venue for that church. I don't know the.
Why was that announced so
Mr.
late though?
Baker?
He interrupted my speaking time to answer the question, and so I'm
Mr.
why was that
Baker?
announced so late though?
Mr. Baker, just, hold on. Okay, and what, did anyone send this to Ms. Trevino so that it could get on council's calendars?
I do not know. We are trying to play second fiddle to the neighborhood commission, trying to stay in our lane, trying to have them facilitate these meetings. We go through.
So they're the host, and y'all are in it.
That is correct.
presenter.
In an ideal world, but I will make sure that it does get forwarded. It is at Zion,
New Zion on Mitchell.
New Zion. Yes, on Mitchell, at 7 p. tomorrow. All are invited. And this will be specific to discuss the Dunbar Heritage Neighborhood, and it will be a community conversation. It's not going to be a presentation. Rio Vista is, by the way, is in April.
Okay, Mr. Mendoza.
Actually, I'm so sorry, Chief, but it shows on my calendar for Thursday at 5:30. Is that?
That's the Dunbar Open House for that.
Oh, I am so
That's
sorry.
for the
My apologies. You're right.
recognition.
Sorry.
It's something completely different.
Sorry, my apologies. Sorry about that, sir. I got it mixed up. My bad.
I didn't get anything.
We will ask staff that facilitates Neighborhood Commission to make sure that those are getting on y'all's calendars. So Mr. Carr will get with him and his team.
Thank you. Okay. I think we have concluded everything that we need to do here. Make one more run. Athens Taylor, Sarah Call, Carmen Rumbaugh, or Katie Nichols? Not here. Okay. So with there being no further business on our agenda, I am going to declare us adjourned at 4 o'clock.